Here we go.
Okay.
And minimize. You can see the screen, right, Aubrey?
Yes, sir, I can.
Good. Okay.
I'm gonna mute my my voice, so just letting you know.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fine. And jump in with any questions you might have. Okay. You and I together, we're going to go as long as I'll tell you what my agenda is for this evening, and this is for the benefit of everybody that's watching the video now. Is that my original plan was we were going to do earned value management and then right into the financial calculations. I kind of changed that up a little bit, and here's why. We're going to do earned value management tonight, right after we look at the homework. We're going to do earned value management, but I wanted to show you. It occurred to me that if I show you the financial calculations, I'm showing them to you before I showed you the contract types. I want to show you the contract types first. So we're going to do the financial calculations on Thursday. So the first thing I'm going to show you is procurement management, which includes those contract types. Then right into financial calculations, and we'll finish the second half of the lecture talking about communications and stakeholder management. If I hit my mark, we're going to be through the planning stages. I'm sorry, the planning processes. We'll have seen all 24 by the time we finish Thursday evening. All right, and if we spill over somewhat into Monday, we're still in this session and do another session. That's fine. We still have plenty of time to get through execution, monitor, control, close, and then reinforce. That's the plan. But for tonight, I'm going to show you. I'm going to go over the homework of those network diagrams that I showed you. Okay, and it's practice, 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 like anything else. All I can do in this class is show you the mechanics, right? Show you this is what you do, and then you got to, just like showing a kid a little kid how to hold the bat and go up there. You're the one that's got to swing the bat. I can show you all the technique in the world. All right, but you got to practice, practice before you go into that PMP exam. Do 100 of these. All right. If maybe that's overkill, but do as many as you need to be comfortable that you could do them at any time. So after we look over the homework, we're going to do earned value management. Then we're going to take a break, and then in the second half of tonight, we're going to do risk management. So I thought risk is a great play. That's the second half of the lecture is a good place to show risk, and it's one of the real major knowledge areas outside of the baseline knowledge areas that really have a major impact in a lot of areas. So when we get into it, you'll see what I mean. And it's the way we think about risk that it shows that, it's nothing that's daunting. We think like this a lot as project managers. So first off, while we're here, I sent out homework for 4 exercises. Be honest with you, if you got to them, that's fine. I'm going to say right now, for the benefit of everybody, that if you want to start looking at because this is where I get a lot of my questions from anyway. If you want to go out there and start looking at the mock exams and such that are out there, all the free stuff on the internet, that's fine with me. The only thing I don't want you to do is try to get ahead of me. So, but we're deep enough now, and by the time we get to the end of this week, all the mechanics stuff, this stuff that takes the bulk of time during questions during the exam, like network diagrams, like earned value management, like financial calculations. I'm going to give you practice problems this weekend for them. All right, and I'm just saying that this is a good place here to it's time now. If you want to start reinforcing, that's fine with me. Just please don't try to get ahead of me, because then they're tempted to ask me questions that I'm not quite ready to answer yet, and then it gets me out of sequence. I would assume that by now, 4 sessions in, you guys are getting an idea of how I'm teaching this and why I'm measuring it like I am to you. It's because I'm trying to reinforce, to give you a foundational understanding first, and then understand. So let's look at the 4 exercises.
Hey, Clark, while you're talking about financial, before I forget.
Yeah.
Today I was reviewing some of the problems, like for present value and all that, because I know we have this in this chapter.
Yep.
I found out a good, reliable resource is Khan Academy. Actually, if you don't understand it, say in one of the textbooks, and you don't understand a certain formula or how to do it, Khan Academy actually explains it to you on like a blackboard.
That's great. Yeah. Go ahead.
So that's what I was just going to give that as a little tip for everybody. Is present value is 1 and they go over the whole thing. And then net present value, so on and so forth.
There's actually, well, now you bring that up. Again, by the weekend, I'm going to release to everyone a short list of some of my favorite resources. One of them is Quizlet, all right, which has a lot of flashcard stuff on it, all right, and so like it's just like estimating techniques. It's a blend of sites, and blend of different ways to see the information, the same information 2 and 3 times, so it's good and reinforced. They said this class here kind of shows you the how. You got to really reinforce it. So go out there. It's time now, if you want to, go out there and practice those problems, especially by this weekend. I'll have gotten through the mechanic stuff for sure. We're almost through the planning phases now. So if you want to go out there and look at planning stuff, don't get into execution, don't get into monitor control. Like I said, just don't get ahead of me. All right, so let me, if I can here, let's start from exercise 1. The first question I sent you was pretty easy, all right? All I wanted you to do was draw out a PDM, all right? So as you can see, I sent you an activities list that only with predecessors. So if you drew it out, this is what you got. You got a little horseshoe looking drawing, okay? I don't like it, say Jill and the others. I don't know if you tried it or not. And I know it's tough to, Clark, how do I share my drawings with you? I did it in PowerPoint, but this takes time. And it doesn't even have to be pretty as long as it's functional. I got to tell you, don't worry so much about how pretty your network diagram is. As long as the dependencies are correct, you're going to be good to go, because you're going to be doing calculations based on the durations and the dependencies. Get them right, okay? And I don't care if it looks like mess. As long as you got your dependencies correct, you're going to do your calculations correct. Exercise 1 was nothing more than doing this PDM here, okay? So I hope you guys got this one. This was the softball of the 4. All right, the second one kind of tried to mirror one of the jobs, all right? So I asked that we draw the network diagram. Here it is, okay? And I came up, here's what I did. I'm not going to, I get it. As you can see, based on the durations, this is what I did. So if you want to go ahead and check my math, that's fine, but I've done this a bunch of times. My forward pass calculation has me at a duration of 12 days, okay? My backwards pass got me to that as my A, B, D, F, G, H as my critical path. It's 12 days long, but I also identified, I'm sorry, let me go back, a second path that going this way, A, C, E, F, G, H. You might see this on the test. That's like we did last week, all right, that they want you to identify the different paths and give them a duration. This path is 9 days long, okay, based on this exercise here. What I didn't do was the float calculations. So they're easy enough to do. Like you see, D has 2 days of float no matter how you do this, right? I'm sorry I didn't put it on this screen. Do the float calculations if you're going to do this, all right? Exercise 3, and like I said, I don't mean to breeze through this, but I do want to get to the lecture. This was probably one of the tougher of the 4 because, as you can see, we have multiple dependencies here and multiple paths for this. So what I did was I calculated my forward pass, and again, you can check my math, but my duration was 18 days. So my duration being 18 days, I went with my backwards pass. These are my calculations. And I came up with a critical path, A, C, E, G, I'm sorry, A, C, E, G, H. I also identified 3 other paths along the way. A, B, D, E, G, H, A, B, D, F, H, and A, C, F, H. So I hope you guys see that there's 4 different paths, and I calculated the durations of the 4 different paths. Like I said, the only thing I didn't do was identify the float activities and the number, but that's the easiest thing to do here. Sorry I didn't put it on the screen, but here it is, okay? Fairly standard of what you're going to see on the exam is these kind of questions, all right? There's my critical path, A, C, E, G, H, okay? And that's 18 days. And then here's exercise 4, where I do my forwards pass, and my forward pass has me at 20. So my duration here, according to this, like I said, I don't mean to breeze through this. I want you guys to practice this. Use the video here to kind of back up your own thinking and your own calculations. I would rather see you try to draw these things out yourself. But if you're going to mirror what I do, that's fine. If you're looking at this and if nothing else, getting it by seeing what I did here, okay, then this is great too. Okay, the backwards pass I did has my critical path of B, C, D, E, G, I. Okay, and that's 20 days. I also identified three other paths, and here they are. I'm not going to go through them all, but you can run them. Here they are. Okay, and their durations. You have to be able to do this too for the exam. So I'm going to bust out of the homework here, and there's the critical path. Okay, I'm going to bust out of the homework one. I can actually send this, and you know what? I think that's what I'll do. This one here, I don't mind sharing with you guys. I'd rather not share my own PowerPoints with you, but this one here I don't mind because it's assignment of homework. So I'll send this out to you as well, the PowerPoint, when I send the link for the video, so that you can look at this. This will help you.
That kind of gets the guide. I call it the answers. Make sure we do it right.
And like I said, if it's a matter of, I want you to try to do it because I'm not going to be there to show you this stuff while you're sitting in the cube taking the test. You got to be able to do it yourself. So all I can do is show you how, but you got to do it. You have to show me that you know how. So this will help, all right? And believe me, we have at least 2 full sessions and more for just reinforcement. We'll do problems together. All right, so I'm going to break out of, if there's no real initial questions or any more questions about that, like I said, I'll send it out with the video link from tonight. I want to jump back into the lecture, okay? And stay with me here tonight, folks, because I do sound a little hoarse. I'm battling a cold, so I got a bottle of water here. If I break this, take a sip of water, it's just because I'm trying to hang in, okay? So let's pick it up right about where we're at here, okay? We have baselined our project. We really haven't, of course, okay, because we haven't looked at the other knowledge areas yet. But assuming that we're taking our plan into action, and this would be it here. We've established, what have we done here? We've established the scope of our project, and because we had such a good handle on the scope of our project, we were able to define the schedule and the cost, how long it's going to take, and how much it's going to cost to deliver scope. That's what we've done. And in hammerhead language, that's what we've done. So we're gonna have a schedule that reflects this, and we're gonna manage within the triangle here. So we need a way to make sure that we're on performance, that we are performing as we had planned. So we're gonna find a way to measure our performance as we're executing our project. We're going to measure where we're at relative to what we planned. All right, and so I'm going to show you tonight what's called a way to measure and a way to manage, and it's going to be called earned value management. We need a way to measure our performance, and we need a way to be able to manage manage this with changes and such on the way back, so we have a complete loop, all right, of information. What happens is we're told as we measure our performance where we are relative to our plan. We need to make some changes, course corrections. There's the manage part, okay? So let me show you that we're going to use what's called earned value management. And it's a measurement technique for performance, all right? And that's really what we're talking about here. In a vacuum, we're talking about project performance. So we're looking at our project, as we say, as from day one of execution now, that we're actually taking our project underway. The ship's away from the pier now, and we're sailing now, all right? We're to measure our progress across the Atlantic, all right? Are we on schedule? And their way that we measure it is called earned value management. Now, I want to introduce, I said I want to kind of show this so that it makes sense, because here's where I find that when people look at earned value management, this is where they get confused. It's not so much the formulas. Formulas are pretty easy. We get to them. They're going to be almost embarrassingly easy. All right. There's, arithmetic and a little bit of algebra, particularly in the current performance formulas. But as easy as it gets. All right. The confusion is, what does value mean so that we can calculate it? First, we have to plan it, then we have to earn it. Well, let's find out. So what is value? To most people, value means worth. So what is something worth? Right? Is the value to it. And I put this up, I start with this concept because this is the subjective definition. This is the subjective view of value. Value is different in the eyes of the beholder. All right. And again, so I say this for a couple of reasons. One, because I want to really get down to what value means to a project manager through the eyes of a project manager so that we can define value, all right? But value is worth. What's it worth, all right? And it's, again, in the eyes of who you're asking, right? So in the eyes of a project manager, we're the one that's decided the value. We plan, here, this is just a little mini version, of course, of a Gantt chart, right? And each one of these steps represent a task. Think about all the work that we've done so far to get where we're right now, all right? We started with a great work breakdown structure and defined our scope, the base of our triangle, right? We took that with our identified work package, and we have been going meeting after meeting and round after round of progressive elaboration, talking to experts, checking, industry data, wherever we're getting our data from as we're building our project, all right? And when we had this, we had our work packages wide open. We were looking at activities, right? So remember the example that I used, 1.3.5, develop some system. I forget what it was, but that work package had 9 activities in it. So let's say these are the activities. With each activity, we had, not only did we define it and sequence it, but we estimated the resource requirements necessary for each one of the activities. So all the labor that was necessary, all the tools, all the materials, remember, we did all this. So that's why I was trying to bring the point in that while we were really analyzing those work packages and those activities, we were doing both time management, time estimates, and cost estimates at the same time because we know what many of our costs are going to be. When we were finished, we did our loss, right? Each one of these activities, we assigned a value to. How much cost is it going to be to get each one of these activities done? That's what's called planned value at the activity level. Remember, what we did is we assigned a value to each one of the activities, the 9 activities in that work package, a dollar value, okay, to each one of those activities. When we were as we complete each of those activities, we're earning that value. So I'm going to show you that. We plan the value and then we earn it. So value is first, it's planned. Us as project managers decided what each of those activities is going to cost us and how we're going to apply it over time. This is our plan. So first we plan value. That's what PV is going to be. Value is planned. So there are three variables in earned value management to calculate current performance, because we're going to calculate both current performance and we're going to forecast where we're going with our project. Let's stick with current performance first. Okay. Where are we today? We're looking at our value is planned. So at any time during our timeline here, I can take a snapshot here. Let's say right here, my plan says I should be finished task 1 and task 2, and I should have, which means that the combined value I should have earned. I should be complete these 2 tasks right here. Don't want to confuse you too, because we're going to take you through an example, but I want to show you what planned value means. It means we haven't executed a thing yet. This is what we say is going to happen and when. I want you to visualize it. Excuse me a second. I'm sorry. I want you to visualize planned value as your cost baseline being spread out across the timeline of your project. Remember, the cost baseline is what you're going to manage to, right? So your cost baseline was derived from all of these activity estimates. You rolled up all your estimates. They all rolled up to work packages. All the work packages rolled up to control accounts. The control accounts equals your cost baseline, right? So when I talk about plan value, I want you to see it in a couple of different contexts. One, plan value is we can have it at the activity level, and we do. That's how we got our estimates in the first place. So we have plan value for each of our activities. We have plan value at the work package level. Plan value for the entire project I showed you is BAC. Remember, I'm going to introduce you to that term again. That means budget at completion. That's the total plan value for the project. So our plan for each of our activities all the way across the timeline, if I add them all up, that is my BAC. It's also my cost baseline, right? Remember I showed you that when we were in court, when we built our project budget from right to left. I told you when we got to cost baseline that your cost baseline really is the compilation. It's the summation of all your activities, resource estimates, rolled all the way up through the chain into the control accounts, and that equals your cost baseline. Here, we're actually executing. We're not planning. Now we're executing. So we're seeing that cost baseline being applied across time. Damn it. I know they want to talk to me, but I can't.
Must be very important.
No, it's a buddy of mine, and I'll call him back later. He wants to see if I saw an email he sent me. Anyway, here's where I'm at. So I want to make sure we see for what we're talking about here. The plan value is we've planned it at the activity level, and we've also timed it's the cost baseline across the project. So from end to end, our cost baseline. It's also our BAC. All right. So when we plan our value across the timeline, that's what we're doing. Value has to be earned. So we can plan it, all right? We can plan that at day 2 here, that this activity and this activity is complete. Maybe it is and maybe it isn't. So the reflection of the real world of actually, are we getting it done like we thought we were in the plan, is going to be earned value. We have to earn it. If we didn't complete the work, we don't earn the value. We have to complete it to get the value, to put it in the earned column, okay? To take it from the plan column and put it in the earned column. So completing work across the timeline is what earns the value. As we complete tasks, and we can say they're complete, we're going to earn the value that we assign to each one of these activities. So when I finish this activity, well, however long it takes me to do, let's say the activity, back in planning, I said this activity was going to cost, $500 end to end, okay? When it's complete, I've earned $500 worth of value. I'm going to show you that in a running example here as we go forward. But I want you to see that value is, from a project manager standpoint, is the value that we assign to the activities, all right? It's the value of the resources that we are going to apply to our project, and we planned it. We know where we're going to apply it, and we know when we're going to apply it. That's why it's called planned value. So at any time during our project, we should be able to take a snapshot and say where we were supposed to be, okay? Keep that in mind. That's what planned value is going to mean. So here's the 3 variables for computing current performance, all right? Starts with plan value, earned value, and actual cost. So now you can see why I showed you in the last screen. I wanted to go over the word value, because you can see value is one of the words in 2 of the 3 major variables. If you don't understand what it means to plan the value and then earn the value, you're really not going to get it as far as the questions are concerned. When you see the formulas, they're very simple. So all you got to do is be sure that you're plugging the right value in, and you're going to get the problem right every time. If you identified the value, the plan value correctly, pop it into the simple formula, it's going to give you the right answer. I want to show you these 3. These are the 3 main variables when we talk about current performance. And we start with current performance because any forecasting that we're going to do in the second part of this is going to be based on how we're performing right now. All right. So let's go ahead and do current performance right now. Earned value management. I want to explain how it works. All right. We need an integrated performance baseline. Here's our triple constraint. So as we take our project into execution now, and remember, think like a project manager. We never really leave planning altogether, but it does taper off to where we're doing less planning functions and more execution functions, right? More issue resolution, more conflict resolution, more schedule, moving things along, right? The scheduling and resources and making sure that the project gets moved forward. So that's where we're thinking. So start thinking now. As I show you earned value management, I want you to think in terms of we're taking our project into execution now. We want to know how well we're doing. And earned value management really is a stark look, okay? It's not a sugar-coated look. Numbers don't lie. They'll tell you exactly where you're at relative to plan. We want to know this because we want to know if we're starting to go off course, right? And so that good project managers don't want to wait till the end of the project to find out it's a mess. We're monitoring our project and taking a temperature of our project on a regular basis for performance, all right? That's our job, is to move this project along the timeline within its budget. Now, if we look at the three baselines that we established in planning, remember this is through all the other knowledge years, but let's say we're at this point now and we're taking this into execution. The scope baseline, I'm going to remove for a second because we're talking about measuring here, right? Performance. Scope lends itself more to be controlled rather than measured. Well, when we define scope, we put controls in about what gets in now and what doesn't get in. So remember when we built our scope baseline, we did so inside of the fences, right? That's really where we were going with scope, is that we tried to fence it in. So if there's any changes from now on, that's really, there's a defined line. The other two, the other two sides of the triangle were created because we estimated all the activities, both time-wise and cost-wise, that it was going to take to deliver scope. So these two absolutely lend themselves for being measured across the time and measured for costs, okay? So here's where we're going to measure our performance. We're going to control our scope, but we're going to measure our performance, schedule, and budget, just like good project managers do. So what we need to do is we need to come up with a way that we're measuring apples and to apples, all right? That we're going to come up with a common unit of measure that we can use, okay, to measure our performance. Since we planned, this, obviously you know where I'm going with this, since our planned value was done in dollars, that's what we're going to do for our measurement. We're going to measure the dollars that we earned against the dollars that we planned we should have earned. That's what we're going to do here. So we're going to create apples to apples here. So we're going to kind of create what's called a performance baseline, all right, that measures the performance in dollars and cents. Because time is effort, all right, and in conjunction with the labor that's being applied and the materials that we're using, it's what's generating the cost. So when we look at, we're going to try it. We have, like I said, we're going to standardize on a unit of measure that we can compare, and of course, it's going to be dollars, right? Because planned values in dollars. So the first one is cost, right? Remember I just showed you the three variables: planned value, earned value, and actual cost. This one's the easiest of the three because actual costs are what they are. Actual costs are not planned, they are actual. These are all the timesheets coming in. These are the bills coming in. We don't have to be a rocket scientist. I just add them up. These are what the real world running costs are. So we're going to measure real running costs, all right, because we're going to measure them against the performance baseline and see how we're doing for a cost performance. We're going to quantify time as dollars too. And the reason we're going to do that, picture my dad, all right? My dad's not unlike many dads of his generation. Kind of a hard ass. especially when it came to earning money. If he gave you a task that he was going to pay you for, he was pretty tough about it. I introduce him here because I want to say that earned value means you earn the value of the work you actually completed, not the work that you planned that you were going to do. He's going to give you credit for the work that you got done. So in this little scenario, let's say I told my old man, let's say I'm 10, 11 years old, and I tell my old man and I'm going to go cut the grass, and I'm going to clear out some of the stuff in the garage, and he's going to give me $20. Okay. And I figure it's going to take me about 4 hours to do. So in my mind, I've already got a plan value. Even as a 10-year-old, I have a little plan in my mind that for $20, I figure it's going to take me about 4 hours to do. I'm going to earn about $5 an hour. So in this little scenario that I gave you here, let's say the workflow is even from start to finish. I should be able to at every hour stop and look back and say, particularly at the end of the first hour, and say, yeah, I'm about 25% through my job, just cutting the grass and cleaning up the garage. I'm about 25% right on plan. Another hour goes by, I should be about halfway through the job, right on plan. Remember, that was my plan, to be done in 4 hours or less so that I could earn at least $5 an hour. And I got news for you. My old man didn't even give me $5 an hour, but I'm telling you what this means. As I complete the work, I'm going to earn the value for it. All right. So let's move on to, again, what we're doing this for from our current performance standpoint, because we need to answer these questions about our schedule and our budget as it stands right now. At any given time, as a project manager, I want to know, how well am I performing? Am I on schedule? Am I behind schedule? Or am I ahead of schedule? Same thing with budget. These are the two sides of the triangle that allow themselves to be measured. So I want to know, am I on budget? Am I over budget? Am I exceeding? Am I under budget? So am I overperforming? These things happen too. I want to know this at any given time. So let's take a look at this. This is the first time I want to show you guys this. Right here is PMBOK's way of showing you that snapshot for current performance. Today, I'm taking a snapshot. This is a running project. Timeline started here. It ends here, okay? So I started my project here. You'll note my planned value for the whole project. This line here. This is what I said from day one as all the way through to BAC. Remember, I got this BAC number because of all my estimates that I rolled up. This planned values curve that you see here is me applying that BAC across the activities, across the timeline to get to here. If I planned it perfectly, I'm done today. I'm out of money, but I've also delivered, and the project's done. If I overrun this number, I'm going to be up here in EAC territory. But for right now, let's stick with current performance because I'm going to show you this.
Also, thinking of most like construction is always EAC. It's very rare BAC, correct?
Absolutely. Construction almost always overruns, and it's because it's so huge, all right? And that you get out in the field, even things like the architect drew the door swinging the wrong direction. It's a change order. See what I'm saying? That they didn't figure on from their side. I'm sure they did. They have contingencies of 10 or 15% normally in construction. Let's say some change orders that exceed that. And you're right. From contractor to contractor through the general contractor, all right up to the owner, almost everybody exceeds budget in construction. And you're exactly right. Let's go here though, back to our current performance. All right. So what we're saying is we started the project. Come here, buddy. We started the project here, and we're taking a temperature check right here. And here is what we see. This is where our planned value to this line as it intersects the midsection there is what we said we were going to do. This is how much value that we had planned up to this point in the project. This would include a bunch of activities that we expected to be completed and to this point, okay? But you can see when we take a measure, take a look at the other two curves. Here's earned value. So this is a measurement of the work that's actually been completed in the field to this point. It's below this line. We have completed less work than we planned. Just looking at this drawing here. I haven't even done a single calculation here. But if earned value is less than planned value, we are behind schedule. Just telling you that, throwing that out ahead of time. The other curve that we monitor is the costs. These are the actual costs, right? So as the bills come in, the timesheets, the bills for our materials, park and space, whatever the hell of our actual costs are on our desks. Holy cow, that's this curve. And guess what? We're spending more money than we planned at this point in the project. Right now, we're not doing so well as project managers. But I think PMBOK, like me, with the examples that I'm going to use, the examples I'm going to use when I show you the formulas have very wide ranges. Usually there's nowhere near this bad, but when I show you the formulas, I want to show you them very with wide ranges because I want you to see them big, okay? I think PMBOK did the same thing here with this drawing. They want you to see the effects of the difference of where here. See, this cost is getting out of control and we're falling behind in schedule. So looking at this drawing, here at this point, we're taking a snapshot of our performance as of right now. This is where we say we're supposed to be. This is the work that we have completed, which is behind schedule. This is the costs that we've incurred to this point, which is more than we planned. Okay? I want you to see this. Also want you to see moving forward that the rest, like I said, the rest of the PV curve rolls up to BAC. From this point forward, though, as you can see, where our costs are exceeding plan. So we are going to be an EAC project, and I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but we can see that EAC is going to be some combination of what we've already spent and what we think we're going to spend is going to be our EAC number. We'll get there. All right. But I want to show you, if you see what I mean from looking at this drawing here, right now, we're not doing so well on as a current performance. If I go to look ahead without even doing a single calculation, I'm telling you that to get that EAC looks like it's going to be some combination of the cost that we've already incurred to date and some sort of estimate from this point forward. Add the two together to get to an EAC. Sounds pretty rockhead, right? But that's where we're going with this because EAC is going to be what I'm teaching tonight. And that's really, I'm going to show you when we get there. I'll show you. Okay. Let's stick with current performance. So I want to show you planned value, earned value, and actual costs. They also had other acronyms. I'm not going to sit on this screen long because I'm going to show you these acronyms again in the example. All right. But let's look at an example of planned value. Here's our plan across the timeline from start to finish. Okay. We're going to measure our performance as we complete the work from start to finish as we progress across the timeline. We're going to measure our performance against plan, right? I'm going to tell you right now that our budget of completion is $2,000. All right. So where do we get that figure? That was all of our estimate, all of our activity estimates for all our resource costs rolled all the way up through work packages to control counts that equal cost baseline. Hate to sound like a broken record, but I want you to continually see what I'm talking about. That the cost baseline is applied across the timeline is our planned value. Our budget of completion at our plan is we say that we're going to get this particular project done for $2,000 across this timeline. All right. I use the metaphor of a donut because this donut is our budget. This is our budget at completion. It's the size it needs to be because we said it is. So I don't know, this could be a 6-inch donut with a hole in the middle. But this donut is because we decided we need this size donut. And I use a donut because as we apply it, when we plan it to this size, but as we apply it across the timeline, we're going to be taking little bites out of this bad guy. We're going to be paying for labor. We're going to be paying for materials. And we planned at certain points across the time that we are going to be paying for things. By the time we get to the end, we will have exhausted our $2,000 budget, and we better be finished because we're taking bites out of this guy, and there's not going to be anything left at the end. So let's take a look at what I mean from a regular guy standpoint. Then on day one, from the plan, we haven't even exited. We haven't spent a cent yet. We're still at plan. It's 8:55 in the morning on that Monday that we're going to start the project. So officially, we haven't spent a dime yet. Okay. The donut that we had that we decided on back in planning is complete still. Right now, the clock starts. Okay. At different points in the project, we're going to take temperature checks of where we should be from a planned value standpoint across the project. This is us planning our $2,000 worth of budget across the timeline from start to finish until we've used up our $2,000. These could be points in the project where we bought materials and we brought in our labor. And as we progress along, we're building something that at the end we're going to deliver. And when we deliver it, our $2,000 budget should be eaten up. So look at it as a donut. And I say this that's being eaten into because I want you to keep this in mind. Think like a project manager, that unless we ask for management reserves, the work that's progressing better keep up with the donut being eaten. Because when we get to the end, we're not going to have any donut left, and we better be done. You follow what I'm saying? If we're not going to get there, we want to know as early as we possibly can. So take a look at what I'm talking about. This line, these numbers here, were our plan value. This is what we say we're going to do. And as we're executing our project, we are applying that donut. We're eating into that donut until it's gone at the end. This is planning. This is execution. At the end, hopefully they matched up, all right, that we had spread out, that we actually used and allocated our resources, and we're finished at $2,000. Do you see this, Aubrey, what I'm talking about, that this was the plan, and if we executed it correctly, we ate our donut, and we finished it right here, okay? I'm sorry, let me go back to previous. Do you see that, sir? The only guy I can ask, but do you see how I did this? If you got questions, I'll show you along the way. Maybe they go a little better, all right? This is, I want you to see that because this is a regular guy look at a $2,000 project. We planned this $2,000 project first. So at any given time, and we're going to take a couple of snapshots, this is where we should be. In execution, here's our donut being eaten up across the timeline. When we get to $2,000 worth of it's done. We better be finished to plan. If we're not, we're gonna have overrun. We will be an EAC project. We'll have to go back and ask for management reserves to finish the project. Okay. We want to know as early. Let me go back again. We want to know, why is this screen so important? One, because I want to try to give you a regular guy metaphor for eating that donut exactly as we planned. It's because we want to know as early in the project if we're going off course, particularly in a low dollar project, because for only a $2,000 project, a couple of small delays here and there can be quite costly. Relative to our project budget. It's only a $2,000 project. We add a few $100 of overruns, and that's big compared to $2,000 that we started with. We want to be able to see performance problems as early as we can. So we're going to do regular checks from our performance so that we don't get to the end here, use up our budget, and we're not done. That's as bad as it can get, right? Earned value is going to help us. So let's look at it in two ways. Earned value looks at schedule performance. So we're going to look at how well we're performing across the timeline from a schedule performance standpoint. How well are we sticking to schedule? Okay, here's our planned value across our timeline. So I show you a schedule from left to right because that's how time progresses across the timeline. So I want to show it to you like this. I want you to see again, this is exactly the same Example that I just showed you, this is our $2,000 project, and here's where our planned value is at these particular points in the project. But here's our work being completed. So let's say we took our temperature check here. We waited this long to take a check of our project. We expect that we should be through $1,600 of planned value. We should have earned $1,600, but we didn't. You'll note that the actual work in the field is behind schedule and that there is a delta. There's a gap here. There's a variance between what we planned we were going to do on this day and what we've actually finished on that day. We're behind schedule just looking at it. We haven't even done a calculation yet, but we can see we did not complete the work that we planned that we would. In fact, we completed, if we measure the work that's actually been completed, we've earned $1,300 of that $1,600. And that's not really good or not very good at all on a $2,000 project. We're not doing so well. All right. This is a big variance at this price. On a $2 million project, we're running pretty good. Nobody's perfect and nothing's perfect all the time. All right. So we're going to get into index here in a second. But on this size project, a $300 schedule variance is not so good. So right here, this is the variance that we're going to calculate when we talk about schedule variance. That's the variance between the work that's been completed and the work that we plan to complete. Our schedule variance in this particular example is a negative 300. I'm going to tell you right now, any negative variance is bad. It's bad on the schedule side because it means we're behind schedule. A negative variance, when we get to cost, I'm going to show you that next, it means we're over budget. Neither are good. Both are bad, bad, really bad. So any negative variance is a bad thing. Here, it's just a raw number. We're figuring schedule variance from a raw number first, then we're going to index it. But here's the simple first formula that I'm going to show you for current performance. There are 4 formulas. This is the first of the 4 that I'm going to show you. Okay? For simple schedule variance, earned value minus planned value. Holy cow. Nothing but arithmetic here. That's 1,300 of earned value minus 1,600 of planned value. Our schedule variance is negative 300. You have just completed the first of the 4 formulas for current performance, the raw variance for schedule. Did you see this, Aubrey? Any questions about this? We measured the actual work, only got the 1,300. Should have got the 1,600. We're behind schedule, and we can show that with a raw variance. Did you?
I got it.
Good.
Yes.
Good. Good. This is so. We're going to do the same thing with cost performance. We want to know a raw variance, and I'm going to show you costs vertically. Why? Because costs pile up. So if we think of like a project manager, costs pile up. We accumulate costs and they pile up. Schedule, we go, progress across the timeline left to right. I'm just trying to show it visually so it makes the most amount of sense. Cost performance is the same snapshot in time where here's the work that we completed to date of our earned value of $1,300, but our actual, we're going to compare it to the actual cost that we're comparing. When we do cost performance, we have to compare the work that we're getting done to the actual outlay of cash that we're spending to get that work done. In this case, this is the bills actually adding up. All right, holy cow, we've spent $1,800 to date. So right now, we're not doing so well either schedule side or on the cost side, are we? This is, like I said, this is our actual cost. I don't know how we got up to $1,800. Maybe we forgot stuff. Maybe we miscalculated how much labor we were going to need. Maybe we ran into a couple of delays, and so our very expensive plumbers stood around and we had to pay them for it. Didn't get any work done for it. However we did it, we ran up $1,800 worth of costs to this point. Remember, I showed you the snapshot shows us about 3/4 of the way from a time standpoint across the timeline. So if we're already spent $1,800 of our $2,000 budget, we're not in very good shape at all, particularly since we've only earned $1,300 worth of earned value. So this is where our variance here. The variance when we talk about cost is the difference between the earned value that the work that we've completed versus the actual cost we've spent to get there. In this case, cost variance is negative $500. On a $2,000 project, this is horrendous. Horrendous. But this is just, and I did this because I want you to see big, wide. We're not going to let the project get like this, are we? We're not. But I did this on purpose because I want you to see these formulas in action, that they actually show. If I show you big, wide, outrageous results, that they're going to shoot, they'll show you what's going on better, I think, than real tight tolerance that you hardly see anything move. This is why I did this, okay? I'm not going to let a project have a cost variance of negative $500 on a $2,000 project, 3/4 of the way into the project. I haven't managed anything at this point, have I? But here's the second formula. Much like the second formula, much like the first, it's like Herman's Hermits, right? Here we're talking about simple arithmetic. It's a subtraction problem. Cost variance equals the earned value. That's the work, the value of the work we've completed minus the actual cost we've spent right at the time we take that snapshot. So the formula here is 1,300 minus 1,800, and our cost variance is negative 500. This is raw variance. Give me a second here. Getting a little gravelly there. All right. I feel better though. But as you can see, I showed this to you in a vertical way. This is the formula for raw variances. So I showed you, so far I showed you 2 of the 4 formulas for current performance. Schedule variance and cost variance that generate just raw variances between what we said we were going to plan and from a dollars and cents standpoint to what we actually got done and from a dollars and cents standpoint. But is that, how bad is that? I mean, when we talk about variances, okay, we talked about raw variances. So on the schedule side, we said we were at negative 300, and on the cost side, we were negative 500. How bad is that? Well, on this particular project, very bad because it's only a $2,000 project. But what if we're on a $2 million project? Our project's $2.6 million. Is negative 300 and negative 500 very bad at all? No, actually, it's not. It's not going to be very bad at all. Could even be a rounding error in a project that large, all right? But how do we know that? We have to index that variance versus to our particular project. How bad is that variance relative to our project? So we're going to do what's called indexing. We're going to do what's called a performance index, all right? Meaning we're going to measure performance relative to 1. 1 is right on plan. Right on plan. So in the case of earned value, if we did the calculation for a performance index, if earned value equaled plan value, so in other words, that means that what we planned we were going to do, we actually earned it. We're right on. We're right on. We're running at 1 or 100% of planned value actually earned, okay? We can underachieve and we can overachieve, right? I want to show you what 1 means. 1 means right on plan. So earned value would be exactly planned value in this case. And on the cost side, our earned value would be exactly what our actual costs would equal, okay? That's how we get the cost of a variances, a performance index of 1. So an index of 1 means the project is executing right on plan, either from a schedule perspective or a budget perspective. An index less than 1. So if we do our calculations, I'm going to show you here in a minute, and it comes up point something, right? 0.91. We're behind schedule, or we're over budget. We're not performing to that 1. We have to, 1 is right on, right? So that's what we're shooting for. Anything less than 1, a point something number, means we're behind schedule or we're over budget. That doesn't mean that we have to panic. So there's tolerances. Remember, we build in what we can live with. We have contingencies. We have management reserves that we thought in. So if it's 0.96 or something, there's not a whole lot of room unless it's a huge project. We want to get better than that. But for a project like this, 9.96 be pretty good if we could get to it. But my point here is for the exam, you need to know that the calculation below 1, when we index anything, means it's underperforming to plan. Our plan is 1. An index that comes up with over 1, so a 1 point something, means we're overperforming. That's kind of a good thing, right? And that means we're ahead of schedule or we're under budget where we planned to be. That could be a good thing. It also could be an indication of a bad thing. And I'll tell you what I mean by that from a project manager standpoint. If we're overperforming, it could mean that we're just good, right? And we're even better than we thought we were. Or it could be that we weren't so very good on our estimates. That the next time we estimate our job, we need to be a little tighter. That the work being performed out in the real world is really what it should have been, and that we're ahead of schedule only because we underestimated. All right. So let's not get full of ourselves. When we see a 1 point something, maybe it means that we're overperforming, and maybe it means that we're performing against underestimates as well. Got to keep an eye on things like that. We're not. Numbers tell you a story, so you need to dig into them deeper. For the exam, this is what you need to know: that a performance index over 1 means that you're overperforming. You are ahead of schedule or under budget. Okay. So let's look at what schedule performance index. So from a schedule standpoint, this is the formula. Earned value divided by planned value. It's still arithmetic, isn't it? Just division. I showed you subtraction. Now I'm showing you division. So there's nothing to worry about so far in these formulas. Schedule performance index is earned value divided by planned value. So in this case, 1,300 divided by 1,600, the SPI, or our scheduled performance index, is 0.81. 0.81. Take a look at if earned value was 1,600 and planned value was 1,600, our SPI would be 1. We'd be running right on schedule, right? That if we planned for 1,600 and we earned 1,600, that's what our schedule would say we were at. Right on schedule performance index. But here we're not. So now we can see relative to our project just how bad we are. How far off are we? The variance that we're falling behind schedule, this shows us that we're only 81% efficient for schedule conformance. Not good at all. Not good at all. All right? It's something we should worry about. Now let's look at from the cost side. How that negative 500, how bad is that relative to our project? Like I said, on a big, huge project, could be a rounding error, but on this project, it's catastrophic, and the numbers show it, okay? And I did this again on purpose to show you outrageous examples so you could see the formulas and what they really do, okay? So CPI, again, very simple formula. This is the fourth and final for current performance. This is it. CPI equals earned value divided by actual costs. So if CPI equals 1,300 divided by 1,800, our CPI, which is our cost performance indicator, is 0.72. Let me stop here and make a couple of observations here. First off, let's look at that CPI. It's pretty bad. 0.72 means for every dollar that we're spending, we're getting only 72 cents worth of value back for it. Not good at all. On a $2,000 project, this is horrible. All right. Of the two, CPI and SPI, all right, CPI is the better of the two for measuring true project performance. How a project does relative to the cost that we plan is a better indicator than it is for schedule performance. Schedule really is a reflection of the cost baseline being spread out over time. It's still the cost baseline, and we still have to perform to that cost baseline. I'm not saying we don't have to perform the schedule. This is telling us we have a problem in something out there in schedule. We got to get to it. And it really is affecting our cost performance, because if we stay on this track, if we continue to fall behind schedule, this cost performance index is only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse because the trends are bad. Our costs are rising high, and our earned values falling behind plan. So we really have a lot of work to do as project managers here to look at this. So like I said, the two things I want to show you is that we're not doing so good. But this is the two added to the two I showed you. The first two I showed you were just raw variances. These two here are the indexes. Shows us how relative to our project, how are we doing? And we're not doing so well. I point this out because these are our numbers. Might as well just tattoo these right on our forehead, these numbers and our EAC numbers, because to our hammerhead bosses who only care about time and schedule, schedule and cost, your numbers are who you are to them, okay? To the hammerheads. So know your numbers. Know them before. Don't let your project get to this point before you do temperature checks. As you can see, I waited because I wanted to do an outrageous example. So here are the four formulas for current performance, once again, on one screen. Okay? As you can see, there are four very simple formulas for current performance of our project, all right? We need to do these because we need to know our current performance before we can forecast, right? But here they are, four very simple formulas, two subtractions, two divisions. So it's arithmetic. It's not even algebra, really. It's not. I mean, it's a formula, but it's arithmetic. So you see, and I also want you to see, look, on the left side, you can catch a little pattern here. That the variance, the first formula is EV minus PV. The second formula is EV divided by PV. Same thing over here. If you're trying to memorize these formulas, and if I was you, you better memorize them. These are the most simplest to memorize. Again, these are your numbers, so they are who you are to in a lot of organizations. I'd know them, live them, and breathe them if I was you. Okay, same thing over on the cost side. That earned value minus actual costs, earned value divided by actual costs. These are the four formulas that you need to know for current performance. And what are they telling us? Schedule variance is telling us that we're behind schedule. Any variance that's a negative is bad. It's indicative of us either being behind schedule or over budget. We are in both cases here. But in the real world, we may not see that. And again, being behind schedule a little bit may not be a big deal on a large project, or being just a slightly over budget may not be a big deal. Okay, everything's relative. That's why we do indexes. How bad of a problem do we have? Okay, we need to index our variances relative to our project, and here they are. Relative to our project, this is the performance index from a schedule perspective and a cost perspective, right as a current snapshot. These outrageous examples are for your benefit. But before I move on, this is current performance, and this is what it's telling you. It's telling you where you're at. On budget, over budget, below budget from a cost standpoint. From a schedule, you're either on schedule, you're behind schedule, or you're ahead of schedule. These four formulas tell you that. Where am I today? Those questions are all answered with these four formulas. And again, Aubrey, you're the only one I can ask, but are we okay so far on what I've showed you on earned value, what it means, and how to calculate the first four?
This four I get. It's a couple of the other ones that I'm like clueless on. So just letting you know.
Well, that's where we're going next. That's where we're going next, and I'm glad. Because these should be pretty intuitive, right? These should be. Let's go ahead and I guess we're gonna get into forecasting, and we'll take a break. So we're in really good shape here. Forecasting is next. All right. First off, I want to show you an example of planned value, earned value, and actual cost in action here. So here's a good screen for you. I'm changing up examples here for you. I want you to see that this is going to be like a Gantt chart. All right. This is a 5 tasks project over 5 days. All right. I'm just making this, excuse me, as rockhead an example as I possibly can. And here's our tasks across the timeline. So here's your Gantt chart, all right, of this 5 task project over this 5-day timeline. And here's the planned value that for each of the tasks, okay? That's, again, I remember I wanted to show you the other acronym for planned value is budgeted cost of work scheduled. So I said task 1 I scheduled it. It's the budgeted cost was $200. That's what I came up with in my estimates. So again, another name for planned value, but I don't think you're going to see these on the exam anymore. These are old school acronyms. Budgeted cost of work schedule, but it is an exact definition of what we're talking about here. The value that I plan for each of these tasks across the timeline is planned value. So here we go with tasks. Here we go. Let me pop in those planned values. So my budget at completion, okay, my BAC for this little example is $1,400. You see that? This is across the timeline. This is my cost baseline being spread out across the timeline. What is my cost baseline? The same as my BAC, right? And it's the same as my planned value for the entire project. That's what we're talking about here. So here, my planned value was over these 5 tasks over this Gantt chart, started and ended at day 5. 200 plus 1 is 300, 600, 900 plus 4 is $1,400. There's my cost baseline spread out over the timeline to come to a BAC of $1,400. And this is this is what I planned. Now, let's look at planned value in the context of what it means. On day 1, right here, okay, I planned that 50% of task 1 is going to be completed. This is my timeline, right? This is the timeline that I laid out as a project manager. So here, I'm saying at the end of day 1, I haven't even started these other 4 tasks, right? You can see that on the Gantt chart. Here on day 1, I'm going to have planned that I'll have finished half of task 1, which means that my earned value, my planned value for the end of day 1 was $100. I planned that we were going to earn $100 worth of value on day 1. So that's my planned value. There it is from day 1. That's my donut getting the first little bite out of it when we get an execution. Okay.
This is something that we talked about like in week 1, video 1 in a way. So I remember the donut. That's why I'm thinking of the example.
Right. Like I said, I wanted to show you the donut because it's your cost baseline in action. And I do it in a donut because I want you to see it as that's your donut. And we're eating away at it. And every time I take a bite out of it, it's getting smaller and smaller, where there's nothing left. I want you to think of your budget like that as you're planning it across the timeline. That there's not going to be anything left at the end. You want to be correct. Okay? And you're going to make adjustments along the way. Let me get back into this example here, okay? Looking at day 2, this for planned value. What do I have? I say here at this snapshot, my plan says I should be completely finished task 1. I should be completely finished task 2, and I should be halfway finished task 3. That's $200 of earned value plus $100 is $300 plus $150 of half of task 3. My planned value for day 2, planned now, I haven't done any of this work yet. This is what I say I should be doing. My planned value for day 2 is $450 of my BAC. This is my plan, my cost baseline as I'm planning it across the line. Look at day 3, snapshot right here, okay? I say task 1, task 2, and task 3 are all going to be done. Task 4 is going to be a third, and 33% of, right here. And the first third of task 4 will be completed. So I'm going to be complete this according to my plan. This will be done. This should be done. This should be done. And a third of this should be done. Okay, as we walk across, that is $700 worth of planned value at day 3. This is my plan. Day 4 is this one right here. Okay, that I have task 1, 2, and 3 are in the books. Task 4 is 2/3 of the way finished, and task 5 is halfway finished. See that? That says that at that point, my planned value on day 4 is $1,050. I'm showing you these because that's my planned value. When I do my snapshots for each one of those days, I already know, remember, it's only 3 variables. That's one of them. And the most important one is the planned value, okay? Here's on day 5, all tasks complete. I will have used up all 14. I will have planned across all $1,400. I want to go back to that screen. Did you see that, Aubrey? how I plan my $1,400 across the timeline. And what do I
Yeah,
expect?
I saw that. It's I'm looking at. I was like day 3 to day 4. You have to calculate the 3 and the 5, 300 and 500,
That's
and
right.
that's where you get your 50. And then at the end, that's where you get your 1,400.
That's right. And what is this? This is your whole cost baseline. Added up comes your $1,400. This is where we applied it. Well, this is where we're saying we're going to apply it. Remember, this is plan value. So we haven't deployed a single person yet. This is what we say is going to happen over those 5 days, okay, to get this thing done. How well we keep the plan is the next thing. That's the earn value. So here's our plan. I just showed it to you, okay, where our planned value across the timeline to get to our $1,400. Let's start doing the work. Let's start earning the value. Budgeted cost of work performed is remember I told you the old acronym? That means actually perform. We're going to get the value of what we actually complete, just like my old man would have you do. So let's say we're going to take a snapshot of day 2 for this example here. Remember, our planned value for day 2 was that we were going to we will have finished task 1, finished task 2, halfway through task 3. And our planned value at the end of, we should have completed $450 worth our earned value. If we're on schedule, we will have earned all $450. We will have finished our tasks exactly on schedule, if in a perfect world. But let's see what we did. Task 1, we are indeed complete 100%. We did complete it, okay? Task 2, we're only half complete. For whatever reason, we only completed task 2 halfway. We expected we would have been done here. So as you can already see, we're starting to fall behind our schedule here. Task 3, we expected to be halfway finished, but we're only a third of the way finished. So somewhere we had some delays, early delays, ramp up delays, something, okay? Somebody showed up late. I don't know what the hell happened, but this is what really happened out there. So on day 2, when I say, what have we got done so far? This is what we've gotten done. The calculations are this, that earned value equals the percent complete times the planned value. So in the case of task 1, remember my old man rule. He's going to give you credit for what you completed and only what you completed. You're not going to get credit for work that you said you were going to get done but didn't get to yet. That you still have to earn. All right, no matter how long it takes you, and that's the way he was. If you go beyond schedule and you run up extra costs, he doesn't care. He's going to give you only the credit for what you earn. So let's look at task 1 in the relative to that formula, that it's 100% complete. So we earned all $200, 100% of that $200 of the planned value, right? So that's the formula in action right here. Earned value is 100% times the 200 of that we said to planned. Okay, we earned that $200. That $200 goes into the earn column. Okay, and we'll black it out as complete. We earned that $200. Task 2, though, we only got half done. So since the planned value of task 2 is $100, the formula is percent complete times planned value. 50% complete times $100, we earned $50. We earned $50. Put that $50 in the earned column, okay? We look at task 3. Task 3, we expected it to be half completed. So, I'm sorry, did we expect, but we only completed a third of it, right? So the planned value for that task is $300. We finished it a third of the way, which is $100. To put that $100 in the earned column. So what did we do here for earned value? I gave you credit for the work that we completed, not the work that we planned because we're behind schedule. But I will give you the credit for the work that you earned. In this case, you earned $350 of the planned $450. Did you see that, Aubrey?
Yes, sir.
Good, because that's what earned value is. Earned value is the value of the work that we actually did. So you couldn't get any more simpler than that. So EV really is a reflection of schedule performance, how well we're adhering to keeping up with the tasks, okay, as we schedule them. Where I'll show you the other side of costs in a second here. But let's go ahead and look at actual costs now against the same plan. So I just showed you how we're progressing across. Beg your pardon?
Can you go back to the previous EV so I can make a note of it, please? Thank you. Sorry. It just went from EV and then I was trying to write, is a reflection of schedule performance.
Right. It's more of a, right, it's earned value. The variable EV really is how well are we keeping the schedule? Because remember, we planned our value across the timeline. So to earn value, we really have to we have to complete and progress across the timeline. So the earned EV really is a reflection of how well we're performing against schedule, where actual costs is the variable that shows us how well we're doing from a cost performance standpoint. So let's go to the other side and of our formula side and show this is the same example here. Here's our plan, 5-day task across the 5 days, and there's our plan value across when we're doing the very same temperature check on day 2. We expect that our plan value for day 2 was $450, remember? Our earned value was only $350. I want to remind you of those two variables now as we look at actual costs. So as we're progressing across the timeline, we're earning the value, so we're completing the tasks, but we're also accumulating costs. And we know this is actual cost of work performed. So this is the third of the old man acronyms. Actual cost of work performed. So that $1,300 worth of work that we actually performed in the last example cost us $1,800 to get there. That's what ACWP is, or actual costs. Again, of the 3 variables, it's the easiest one to understand because it's the bills as they come in. So let's take a look at it in action against our current example, right? Remember, we finished task 1. We finished it. So we earned that $200 worth of value, but somehow this task cost us $300 in the real world to get done. We exceeded the cost of task 1 somehow. The delay meant we had to bring a second guy in or something, and we didn't figure whatever it was. In the real world, we got it done. We got it done on time, but we overran our costs. Somehow we did, okay? So we've run up $300 against the work that we only earned $200 for. In task 2, remember, we only got it half done when we were supposed to be completely finished. We've earned $50, but somehow we spent $75. We're not very good project managers. Somehow we either screwed up the estimates early that we didn't get them right, and so now the real world's coming in, and we either weren't right in the beginning, or we're not managing our costs and execution very well, and they're starting to get away from us. Something is going wrong here. Our costs for task 2 is $75. Remember, we only earned $50 because we already finished half of it. Task 3, we're only a third of the way through. We've earned $100 worth of earned value, but somehow we spent $200 on this task so far. Holy cow. Costs are beginning to get out of hand even in this example. And again, I did this on purpose so you guys could see the outrageous example and see the formula in action. Okay? So what have I done? The very same snapshot. At day 2, my plan value was $450. The actual work that progressed that I've actually finished only earned $350. And the cost that I ran up at the same time that I was doing the work is $575 on day 2. I'm not doing so well schedule or costs in either direction. And this example is even worse because this is only a $1,400 project, remember, end to end. So we talk about cost variance being the difference between earned value and actual cost, right? Let me go back here. Let me go back the previous one more time. I'm just showing that this is it. And so this is where we came up with actual costs, $575. So without even doing the 4 formulas, we know that this project here is behind schedule and is over budget, and very badly so, okay? We can see that already, and we know that our cost variance is the difference between the earned value and actual cost. So here that was at $350 minus 575. I want to show you this screen here because I want you to see that in the real world, this is what we do. That Gantt chart that I showed you. As we're completing our tasks across the timeline, we're claiming the value for them. These tasks are complete, so we claimed 100% for those, just like I showed you in the last screen. This task here, this analyst that's using an analyst and a vendor and 50%. So we've taken 50% of the value of that and claimed it as earned value. See how this is done in MS Project. 10% for this one, 25% for this one. We decide in time management and cost management how we're going to claim earned value. In MS Project, there's different settings. We can do this, take half and then half. We can do this in quarters. We can do this in any scale we want to, okay? We decide that in one of the dot ones. But I wanted you to see this as an example of a Gantt chart showing you just exactly what I'm talking about. That as work is being completed, we are taking credit for the value of the work we actually complete and putting it in the earned column. Here you can see it on a Gantt chart in an MS Project, okay? This is really what we're looking at, those cost curves, those curves that I showed you in the first screen. Here they are again. But for our example, you can see that our planned value on day 2 was $450. Our earned value, our actual work that we completed, was only $350. And our actual costs, we ran up $575. So far, no example that I've shown you shows us to be any good at project management. We're not very good. And again, it's because I want to show you these outrageous examples. But you can see these are indicative. These are not just numbers to show us. We want to see that we're starting to fall behind schedule. That's indicative of bigger problems. So using earned value means that we can use it to kind of start to dig in and find problems. That our numbers are indicative that there are deeper problems, there are root causes. I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, our schedule variance, when we talked about this, remember of this example, all right, that our schedule variance, let's go ahead and do the formulas we didn't do yet for this example here, where we earned $350 of $450 of planned value. Here it is. Here's that simple formula. So in this example, our schedule variance is that we're negative $100 for this example here. And remember I told you any negative variance is bad. It means in this case, we're behind schedule, okay? $100 worth of planned value. We're behind schedule here, okay? It's even worse on the cost side, all right? So let's look at the cost variance. The second set of formulas set against our new example associated with the work. Remember, here's our actual costs. So cost variance was actual costs versus earned value. So our cost variance is going to be quite large. Earned value of $350 minus that $575 that we managed to run up somehow. And our cost variance is negative $225 on a $1,400 project. That's horrendous, all right? And again, it's a negative cost, it's a negative variance. Negative is bad. In this case, when we're talking about costs, that means we're over budget. Okay, we're over budgeted. So when we talk about indexing, let's go ahead and do those calculations when it comes to this example. So here's our data set. Planned value on day 2 at the snapshot was $450, earned value $350, actual cost $575. So let's first do this simple SPI, which is earned value divided by planned value. This point, our schedule performance index is 0.78. We are only 78% efficient from schedule performance. Not good. Not good at all. Okay. In other words, for every dollar of planned value, we're only getting 78 cents worth of work completed. That's what we're doing on the cost performance side. Here, we're only 61% efficient. We do our numbers here. CPI is a horrendous 0.61. Absolutely terrible. We'd never let a project get this bad, but here we are. And this means for every dollar of actual costs, every dollar we're spending, we're only getting 61 cents worth of value. That's not really good. Really, again, I say CPI, if I had to say one's boss over the other, CPI is more boss. It's more indicative of how well a project's performing. The health of a project is better shown in CPI. And you'll see that in one of the EAC formulas. I bet PMBOK agrees with me. Okay? But those are your four formulas. You also want to, I also want to show you, you might see the reverse of these two here. So schedule variance percentage, how far from a percentage standpoint are you off? That would be this formula, schedule variance divided by plan value, which comes up to 22% or 0.22. Notice that it's the complement of the schedule performance index. This is how well we're performing. This is how far off we are. Add the two up is 100%, right? Get the same effect over here. That if we do a cost variance percentage, which is cost variance divided by actual costs, we're 39% behind, 39% off. We're performing at 61%. Add that 39%. It's the complement of the two, right? That, ladies and gentlemen, is current performance. That's how you define PV, EV, and AC, and that's how you use it in the formulas, and I showed you a couple of examples. I'm going to go into forecast. Let me show you using EVM. Like I said, you might see this on the test, that using it because the numbers are telling you something. Okay, and quickly here, what it's telling us is we're having a problem. And it's easy enough here in this simple example to see it with our own eyes. But in large scale network diagrams, it's not so hard to pick out problems just with the eye. We're going to look at earned value to use it. We can see that task 3 particularly is underperforming. We can see it only has a CPI of 0.5, which is the worst in the table of the formula so far. This is based on the snapshot. This is how we're performing right now. Task 3 is a real problem. We might want to dig in and see what's going on. First, task 2 is not looking so good either. But task 3, let's say task 3 is a critical path task as well. We really should be concerned here, okay, that we're really running our costs at an inordinate speed. We're not getting the work done like we should, and maybe it's a critical path so we're in real trouble. But our numbers tell us something. And we start to look at our root causes. We start to try to find reasons why this is happening like it is. It's forcing us to think. I'm not going to get into all that now, but you might see test questions like that. That what is good, what is the use of earned value? Earned value is telling us the health of our project, the performance of our project, but deeper use of it is that it kind of points us in a direction. It tells us we have problems and we need to look deeper. Okay, so in a nutshell, to use it, it helps us identify a problem, which as we start to use some of the more advanced tools, we'll find underlying causes and identify root causes. Sometimes we can identify a root cause that fixes 12 problems all at once. We'll get there when we get to quality management. But it makes us think, and it makes us as project managers, when we start to look at some of the CAPAs that we're going to have to generate, we're going to have to justify those CAPAs. A lot of it comes from us thinking deeper and analyzing where the problem could be so that we can fix it. We focus on critical path and near critical path items. That's what I'm saying, so that we can create the correct CAPAs, change orders to get us back on track. Earned value management is telling us from a current performance where we're at right now, the health of our project as we stand today. Forecasting is going to take it the next step. Forecasting says, based on how well we're doing today, if we continue to perform as we are today, this is what the end EAC is going to look like. Okay, so that's what we're forecasting is EAC. So again, I told you we need a way to performance from current performance. I told you we needed a way to figure out how are we doing right now from a schedule and budget standpoint. Okay. We also want to know from a future standpoint how well, if we're performing like we are, what's that going to look like? And we can see that that's going to be a large number. We have a problem. It's almost like a ship sailing across the sea that even a couple degrees off right now, projected across, a few thousand miles, we're going to be way off course. So we want to fix things early, okay? Future forecasts show us the dire consequences if we don't. And I'm telling you, if that EAC is really large against BAC, we're going to catch a lot of heat for it. We're going to have to get back on. Okay, just like I did when I showed you current performance, I'm going to show you the main variables as it comes to forecasting. A couple you've already seen already, okay? BAC, budget at completion, which is planned value for the whole project. So that's what we say our project was going to cost us end to end. Our cost baseline end to end is equivalent to BAC. So it's going to be a key variable in our forecasts because it's what we said we were going to finish at, all right? So whatever we're doing, it's going to be relative to that, right? EAC is estimate at completion, and as we've seen a couple of times, right, it's going to be what the real number is going to end up being if we're overrunning. If we continue at the performance where we're underperforming, the EAC necessarily will be bigger than BAC, and we're going to calculate that. That right there, Aubrey, what you said was, it's EAC that confuses me. Yes, of course. That's why you took this class, because the key to EAC is knowing there are 4 formulas for calculating EAC, and their situation. Knowing what situation, and you pick the right formula, and you will get the question correct. I'm going to show you tonight, okay, exactly, regular guy, how you do that. The third variable is ETC, estimate to complete. And that makes sense when we're talking about forecasting, right? When we take a snapshot, we're 3 weeks into the project, we've already accumulated some costs. So what we're saying when we say estimate to complete, we're saying from this point forward, we think it's going to cost us, it's still going to cost us this. So what I'm saying is that EAC, let's look at EAC from a hammerhead, hard hat perspective. EAC is going to be some sort of combination of actual costs that we've already accumulated up to the snapshot we're taking and some estimate to complete. From this point forward, this is what we think it's going to take. Added to what we've already spent, we'll come up with an EAC. Okay, I'm telling it that this is a mindset, okay, so that you understand where we're going with EAC, all right? That EAC, this is really what it is when it comes down to a nutshell, is what have we done so far and what do we think it's going to take us in some form or fashion, gets us to EAC, okay? I throw that up there because I want to show you that it's simpler than you think it is. All right. Back to this, and this is where I think, Aubrey, I'm gonna earn my money a little bit on this, because this is going to show you, to give you the reason, the actual point, the decision of what EAC formula do you use. Take a look at this. Let's go back to this again. We are here, remember? From a current performance standpoint, here's what we decided. If we stay on this current performance, we will necessarily overrun BAC, will we not? We're going to well eat into management reserves, and it looks like we're even going to exceed those if we stay at this pace, okay? So we need to decide how are we going to, based on performance today, what is this number, okay? If we continue along the pace that we're on, this number is going to look like X, all right? So like I said, think of it from a hammerhead standpoint, that EAC is some combination of, and we see it even right here on this graph, some combination of actual costs that we've already incurred, the solid line here, up to the point that we're taking our snapshot. That's this AC here. And the dotted line from here on up, some form of ETC. Add this, and we get the EAC, right? It's pretty simple. How do we decide which of the 4 formulas do we use to get to here, okay? And here it is, that the key is this, that as I'm taking my snapshot today, the variances that I see, the schedule variances and the cost variance that I'm seeing right now with this snapshot, do I expect to continue to see them, or do I think they're only for just now? Do I think that the variances that I'm seeing with this particular snapshot, are they going to be typical for the rest of the project, or are they just atypical? In other words, there are a couple of speed bumps we're seeing now, but I think from this point on, we're going to be fine.
Well, I think maybe it's going to probably be typical versus atypical. I think we're going to probably see it continuously.
Well,
Correct?
because well, on most projects we will because because if we're good project managers, our project is pretty much running to plan. So our variances are okay. We're okay with them, and we're going to live with them, and we're going to say that they're typical across the timeline. But let's say that they're not, that the variances we're seeing today, we don't expect. And I'll give you an example is construction, which is one you and I have to that especially early in a project, the ramp ups. So all the site work that has to get done, we're moving all the trailers onto the site and the heavy equipment and putting in the ramps and the walkways. It's slow, right? So we're running into some speed bumps. But once it's all built, everything will move like a top. It's an example. What I'm saying is that the variances that I'm seeing today, I don't think are going to be typical from here on. That's the decision I need to make. You don't know this. It depends on your project, Aubrey. If you're running a project that has typical variances, that's your decision you're making today. You decide, are the variances that I'm seeing today with this snapshot right here, do I expect that I'm going to continue to see the same type of variances or not? That's the question you answer. Okay, and I'm going to show
Right.
you.
That's
Go ahead.
that. I was just thinking you're gonna see you would see that looking at the graph or the chart. I mean, just that is just I'm just throwing that because that's my math or my PM hat is on, try to be on anyways.
Well,
That's what I'm looking at.
don't read too much into this particular. This is only to show you the mechanics of what I'm going to show you in this next couple of screens. But what I'm showing you here is that if we continued on the path that we're on, this is how we're performing today, and right now we're underperforming. If we continue to underperform, our EAC is going to be much higher than BAC. But how do we calculate that EAC? There are four formulas, and this is where the confusion comes in. So I'm trying to unconfuse you the very next screen is I'm going to show you these four formulas, and I'm going to show you when you would use them. But you have to make the first choice you have to decide is of the snapshot I'm taking today. I'm seeing variances. I'm negative 300 on the schedule side, negative 500 on the cost side, right? Do I think that those are going to be typical for the rest of the project? Or do I think they're atypical? That I'm only seeing them now and then I won't see those later. Okay? You can visualize what projects fit those two, but that's the first question you answer. Stick with me here, Aubrey. So let's move. Let's look at those four formulas. First, let's start with the most common formula used for EAC. And is this one here. The EAC equals BAC divided by CPI. Formula itself is telling you a story, okay? It's telling you what it's calculating. It's telling you that the EAC, we think is going to be a budget at completion divided by the current cost performance index. So we're saying that this formula we would use when we think that things are typical. What we're seeing is pretty typical. This is the most common formula used because we expect our project to run close to plan, on or close to plan. We don't expect to see wide variances, right? We don't. That we expect that that we planned our project out pretty well. This is the everyday real world first one of the four that you'll see. But we picked this formula because, and they're going to tell you in the question, read the question, okay? It's going to tell you to whether do you expect to see these variances again or you don't. They're going to tell you in the question. Basically going to tell you which formula to use. If they tell you that these are typical variances, this is the formula you're going to use, okay? Let's use it on that $2,000, the second example that I showed you, the the first example I used of the $2,000 project, okay? The $2,000 project with the 0.72 CPI. that EAC comes to $2,778. It's a horrible number considering that our BAC is 2,000. So this project's in trouble. I want to show you something about formulas. Wait a second here. Okay, we're running a little behind. We may just do earned value this evening and stop. That would be okay with. That would be fine because we could catch up. I want to make sure you get this because I want to send you some formulas to work on. Okay, so this is the first formula you would take. Let me show you some of our formulas. They may ask you a question, give you a lot of information in it, and the question that they asked you was, what is the ETC for this particular question? Answer the question asked. I only show you that because that they may ask that some questions are going to be two-part questions. We have to figure something out first and then figure out the second to answer the question. In this particular case, it could actually be a three-part question. Follow what I'm saying here is, if they ask you, they give you, and they say, this project is going to be, the variances you're seeing are going to be typical. What's the ETC on this project? They're going to give you enough information that first you're going to have to figure out what CPI is. You can't use the typical formula until you've decided, so you know what CPI is. So they're going to give you basic information like planned value, earned value, and an actual cost in the question. Somewhere you're going to pull it out so that you can first figure out CPI. Okay. Then you can figure in that formula, plug it in so you can figure out EAC. So the first formula that they're going to add, that you'll have to figure out is CPI, so you can figure out EAC, so you can figure out ETC. I'm only telling you this because on the test they may have you do this, so that some questions aren't so straightforward. They have to figure out two parts or three parts. Do you get where I'm going with that, Aubrey? That if they asked you ETC here, I would have had to have done this in three parts to answer this question.
I was kind of looking at the say the EAC equals BAC divided by CPI, but then I'm looking at, okay, then I'm asking the next question, and then I'm like, or you're asking the next question, it's like, oh my God, my mind it's a little mind-boggling, if that makes any sense.
Okay, so let's slow it down here, okay? This formula tells me that I expect things to keep riding along pretty much remember what cost performance index is. It's our bang for our buck. It's really the true health of our project. So we're saying that what we're seeing today, when we take a snapshot on day two or whenever, the variance we're seeing are typical to the variances that we're going to see throughout the project. It's a well-run project would use this because, again, the flow of the work is matching plan. We planned a pretty good project and we're executing it well. So, but I used outrageous examples of a project that's not going so well, because if I used one that was going so well, it wouldn't move much, right? And you wouldn't see a whole lot of movement, and maybe you wouldn't get what I'm saying here. EAC here, okay, our BAC was only $2,000. Our CPI was 0.72. EAC, using this formula, says that the final EAC was going to be 2778, way high compared to our BAC. We never let it get to this point, all right? But what I'm telling you for the test, Aubrey, is to read the question itself, the two-paragraph question or whatever it is. Within the paragraph, it's going to tell you enough information to decide on which EAC formula is appropriate to answer the question that they're asking. They're going to tell you that the variances that you see, you expect to see in some way or form. They're going to tell you in the question that these are typical variances, or you expect to see these variances through the rest of the project. That means they're typical. Or they're going to say in the question that these are atypical, or you don't expect to see. Some language like that is going to tell you to use this formula. This is the atypical formula. Remember, I told you that's the first question you got to ask yourself. Are the variances that I'm seeing today typical throughout the project, or are they just atypical, that I expect to see them now and not as a typical function through the rest of the project? So if there are those ramp ups, like I just said, that I don't expect to see again, I would use this formula, the atypical formula. And the atypical formula here What's it telling me? It's telling me that to calculate my EAC, I'm going to use actual costs that I've already, again, a form of this formula here. This is inside the parentheses is my ETC. So I'm going to add my actual costs and some form of ETC. Here, I'm saying that it's atypical. I'm saying that from now on, I'm going to be back on budget again. So I'm going to, whatever costs I run up now, whatever's left of my BAC my BAC minus my EV, I'm back on schedule. That's what this is saying. From now on, I'm going to be on schedule. That my BAC minus EV plus what I've already ran up. Here, that's what it's telling me. Here it's telling me that my EAC, remember, I've run up an outrageous $1,800 already. My BAC was 2,000 minus 1,300 of earned value. My EAC is $2,500 in this case. It's an outrageous example, all right? But this is the formula you use when the variances that you expect will be atypical. You don't expect to see them moving forward. It's an important distinction, and it really does decide of the four. These are the two you're most likely to see first. And again, like any formula, they may ask you to go ahead and figure for ETC, which is this formula here flipped around. Every formula can be flipped around. Remember that as I show you the financial formulas on Thursday, that they're not just going to give them to you as you memorize them. They're going to give you, if they give you all the variables of a formula, you ought to be able to flip it around and solve for the unsolved variable. Now, you're going to have to be able to do that for the exam. I'm showing you these now in blandly, but remember, flip them around if they give you if they want you to solve for something else. All right. Here is the atypical. So again, what's it's telling me is that I expect from this point on, I'm going to add the cost that the exorbitant costs I've already accumulated, but I'll be back on schedule from this point forward. Okay. Typical and atypical. We'll see these again. The third formula is this. This is when it's so out of whack, okay, that we need to kind of scrap it and come up with a whole new BAC. They're going to tell you that in the question, that really we're going to go back to and create a new BAC. They'll tell you that, or some verbiage that we're going to go back and replan this old bad boy again. So what we're telling here, this formula is a form of this in regard to this, right?
What does BU stand for, by the way?
What's that?
BU. BUETC.
I'm going to explain it in a second. I'm right. That's what I'm doing, man. Let me tell you what that means. Hold on. That it's a bottom-up estimate to complete. That's what BU means. Okay. So what am I doing here? I'm actually saying I'm throwing the towel in. I'm going to use this formula. So I'm kind of throwing the towel in. What do I mean? None of my numbers are right. Doesn't look like anything that I estimated in the beginning was right. Okay. And this project's going all over the place. My best course of action right now is to stop and re-estimate the work that's still left to be done and do it right this time. So I estimate what's left to do, and I really do it right this time. That's what my bottom-up estimate is to complete. So the cost of the work that I've already done, plus I'm re-estimating all the work that's left to be done. That's the formula I use here, either when I'm doing rolling wave, or I'm creating an entirely new BAC because I have no faith in my numbers. And I'm telling you, within the question, in the body of the question, they will tell you that. And you'll say, oh, I'm creating a new BAC. Use this third formula to calculate EAC. And again, here it is in action. The fourth formula is this one, where you have a customer, and in the question it's going to say who wants extra emphasis on either schedule performance or cost performance. And they're going to tell you that in the question, that this customer, this project is extra sensitive or against schedule performance or cost performance. Meaning that, like I told you, remember I told you that it's been my experience that one constraint is usually immovable, right? That can't be moved. So it's kind of more important that would perform to it than the other. And so we can use a formula like this that weights the performance index so that it has more value or more weight to it in the calculations to make sure that we're conforming to it more than the other. Okay, and we can use, so this formula is the one that we use. Probably see one question on the exam, but it's the fourth. 4 EAC formulas. You'll use this one, and in the question, it's going to tell you that your project is extra sensitive to schedule performance or cost performance. It's going to tell you that. And so, oh, that's the light bulb says use the fourth formula, this one. And in the real world, we could actually weight these even further, like whatever cost performance, whatever the CPI is, I could weight this even higher than 7.2. I can weight that by 2 or something because I really want CPI to be more important than SPI. For the exam, this is the formula as you're going to see it. So if you see a question like this, use this for formula. Whatever the CPI and SPI is your denominator. And you use this, again, because the question told you so. Okay? And again, you can figure out ETC. So here you are, again, back to that 2 complete performance indexes. The next thing. I want to stop and take about a 10-minute break here. Okay? We'll finish up we'll take about
Awesome.
we'll take about 5 minutes. Did you see the forecast though? Did the EAC selection make sense to you, Aubrey?
Yeah, it does. Can after our break, can we go back for the
Yes.
last shot after the break, and then I can write it in.
We most certainly can. We'll go back to the 4 EAC formulas and pick it up from there. All right, let's backtrack a little bit. Now back just so that we can review the EACs again, which are so important. The EAC formulas are so important because those are the ones that you're gonna see a bunch of questions on. They're the ones that have a level of confusion to them. This is why, EAC comes in different flavors, all right? Well, at least the way that you calculate it comes in different flavors. And so you had to know the key is to select the correct EAC formula for the situation asked in the question. So let's go back. We'll backtrack a little bit just of what we just went over because I did go over kind of quick. And the second time through maybe for EAC now. So we're in the forecasting. So again, what's a forecast? A forecast is relative to to current performance. If we continue on the performance that we're on, this is where we're going to end up, right? So if broken down in a common sense, regular guy language, that's the best way I can describe it to you, all right? Selecting EAC here, meaning that our project is exceeding our BAC or our cost baseline here. In order to calculate that, like I said, there's 4 formulas, but really they're all kind of a variation of this. So this is really the whole idea, to try to come up with an EAC. I'm a lunkhead project manager, so I like to look at things very simply first, all right, and see what is it we're trying to figure out. EAC means where are we going to end up at the end of this project if we keep going? So first variable makes every bit of sense. The actual costs to date, okay? And so that's the first part. So what have we accumulated from a cost standpoint to this point? That's the first thing we have to count, okay? And then from this point forward, what do we think we're going to spend? It's pretty simple in concept. What did we spend already and what do we think we still have left to spend? Add the 2 together. That will be your EAC. All right, just from, like I said, from a lunkhead standpoint. And there are 4 ways to calculate EAC based on situation. And the key first question that you ask yourself when we just went over this, we're going to do it again, is that while I'm taking this snapshot, while I'm doing my current performance calculations of earned value, actual cost, planned value, I'm going to put my variances and my performance index. Do I expect the variance that I'm seeing today at this snapshot to continue or not? That's the key question. There are four formulas. 2 of them are easily explained. 2 of them confuse each other. This is how you separate the first 2. When do I use the first one? When do I use the second one? based on variances that I'm seeing as a project manager right now, do I expect to see them continue or not? And you will, in the question, be told whether these are typical variances or atypical variances in one form or another in verbiage. All right, they're going to make it clear to you what they want you to do in that regard. Variances are typical or atypical. That's the first question you ask yourself, because the first two formulas are typical and atypical. So once you've answered the question that I think that the variances I'm seeing today are typical, that I will see them throughout the rest of the project, I would use this formula. And again, I told you this is the most common formula used because most projects are running along to plan or close enough to plan. I mean, if they're not, then we have a real problem in estimating and things like that we need to work on. But if we're a good company that, I don't know, we'll take a Henkels and McCoy, for example, that does construction for a living, and their processes are tight, their costs are tight, they're probably using this formula for most of their work, okay, because they're pretty good at they know what to expect and have planned for it and expect it. So here you're using this typical formula. This is the formula that I would use if I answered the question that yes, what I'm seeing today is about what I'm going to see from a variance standpoint all the way through the rest of the project. Okay, that means EAC equals, this formula is BAC divided by the current CPI, right? So in this case, in the case of our example, our BAC was $2,000. Our CPI was a miserable 0.72. And again, we would never let our project get this far and use this formula. I'm only using these formulas, again, for outrageous effects. This, like I said, usually is for a project that's pretty well run. Our EAC in this particular, using this formula, came to $2,778 on a project that's only $2,000 for a BAC. Now remember, when I hear, or the other point I'm making is this one, all right, that they may ask you in the question to figure for ETC. If you see that, you need to figure on EAC first. So you can already know that if you have at least a two-part question. To get to EAC, you'll have had to calculate what EAC is, all right, so that you can back it out of the equation. So here, once I figured out EAC, I could answer the question about ETC because I'm just going to plug that $2,778 that we figured here, minus the actual cost that they're going to give you in the question. And our estimate to complete, that means from this moment forward, based on using a typical formula, we're going to spend an additional $978 on top of the $1,800 we've already spent. Okay, that's what we're saying here. And I'm also pointing out that formulas work, that formulas can be moved around. Formulas can be moved around. The values, as long as it's an equation, so you can move things from one side of the equation to the other, okay, and make it and figure for the unknown variable. So they could give you, instead of asking you to figure for EAC, the example is I'm talking about, they ask for ETC, and you had to get there. And in the case of ETC here, it's the three parts. First thing I have to figure is CPI. I have to know what CPI is first before I can figure EAC, before I can figure ETC. Expect that on the exam, right? Second one is the atypical. Remember, the four phases. So now I'm looking and saying that the snapshot that I'm taking on February 11th that came up with those horrible numbers, okay, are atypical. I do not expect that these variances that I'm seeing today will continue. I believe we'll be okay from this point forward. That being said, and that should be, you'll get that information from the test question. I picked this formula, the second one, the atypical. I do not expect to see the same variances. That's what the formula is telling me, okay, is that this is the ETC part of this, right? That I think I'm going to be back on, from this moment forward, I'll be back on budget. I'll be back on cost baseline. Added to the costs I've already ran up, okay, that I don't expect to see. I'm back from, so the cost I ran up plus I'm back on budget gives me the EAC, because I don't think I'm seeing that these are going to be typical, that I'll be okay from this point forward. That's why I used this formula. Typical variances, atypical variances. Can I explain it any clearer than that? I don't know if I can. I can explain it again and again, and I will a couple more times. But this completely clears up the confusion about which EAC formula you need to use to answer the question you're being asked. Read the question. It's going to tell you. It's going to give you the circumstances of which EAC formula it's asking for. And it will give you enough information in the question, okay, to fill it, to get there, to calculate all the way to where they want you to. They will give you enough information. They may give you too much information. That's the other thing we'll talk about when we get to questions, is that they may give you superfluous information just to kind of crowd your mind a little bit. You're going to have to sift through it, come up with the right variables. It's a piece of cake, though, if you do it enough times. So here we go with our example. And I'm not going to go back through it again, but here we calculate EAC to $2,500, saying that, yes, we've run up some high costs now, but from this point forward, we're okay. And you can see that number is lower than our current performance, where we're okay with it just running amok. We're going to run that. Running amok takes us up to this figure. We're only running amok to this point, and then okay from this point on, only runs us up to 2,500. Typical, atypical. Aubrey, like I said, you're the only guy. Before I move on to formulas 3 and 4, do you see why I would choose Formula 1 or Formula 2? Are you still confused, sir?
No, sir, I'm not.
Okay, so like I said, because I will send you, there's mock exam questions out there, and exactly what I'm talking about. They're going to mirror the test question, 2 paragraphs or something.
I think,
go ahead.
If it's repetition and I'm understanding, and I could break things down and into bite-sized pieces, as you would say,
yep,
and understand which is which, then I'm okay. But just, when people say, okay, memorize all these formulas, okay, well, how do you use all these formulas if you memorize? It's like memorizing something you don't really understand.
Right.
And that makes it.
Well, it does, but you're going to have to memorize all 4 of the formulas, but which one do you apply? That's the real question. You certainly have to know your formulas. So you will have to memorize these formulas.
But that's where the practice comes in.
That's where the practice comes in. Practice comes in applying the right formula for the question. And I'm going to send you mock questions that cover all 4 formulas, because I want you to do all 4 formulas, but I want you to have selected the right formula for each question. So each question should contain enough information to tell you that it's either typical variances. You're going to see it in the question somewhere. Atypical. You don't expect to see this again. From this point on, you and your team think you'll be fine. Something like that in the question will tell you to use the second formula. This is the difference. You have to know how to apply. You have to know how to use all the formulas. The key to passing the exam is using the right formula for the right question. So the first two. Yeah, go ahead, man.
And that's where the practice comes in, because I've been studying, like, say, EV and what is earned value, what's the math, but then you're trying to figure out where to apply the EV and how to understand to break it down. And I sometimes, I was taking a test once for this, a mock exam, and I was doing it the long way versus the short way, like I'm going to call it the shortcut.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that I was doing.
Well, like I said, the best advice I can give you here is to use the typical or atypical. Use the variances that you're seeing today. Are they typical or atypical? Will clear up the confusion really is between these 2 formulas, not so much the next 2 I'm going to show you. The next 2 are also pretty self-explanatory. If there's anything to confuse you, do I use this Formula 1 or Formula 2? And it's going to say it in the question. Typical variances, atypical variances, okay? Now, more on in the future, but learn that, and you'll know which formula to apply at the right time. You got to know them all, but using the wrong formula and coming to a right answer is still a wrong answer, guy, okay, for the test. So this is what I mean. Think typical, atypical. The other 2 work like this, right? Where This is pretty self-explanatory. This is not vague. There's not a vague, or the variance is typical or atypical. This one here is pretty self-explanatory, that it says we don't like any of the numbers that we've been using. We don't like any of them, and we're going to create a whole new BAC. And we're either, and you're going to see in the question, we're either doing a rolling wave planning, which I told you was we're partially planning future phases, right? Because it doesn't make sense to plan future phases completely until we start getting closer to them. So we do rolling waves, and we're doing these kinds of estimates, okay, in a rolling wave. Or the current project we're on is just so out of whack that really we should stop right now, take an assessment of what's still left to be done, and look at it in the light of day. We can't redo the work we've already done. That's actual costs, okay? But from this point forward, we have X amount of work left to be done. Let's redo what we did back in the work packages, back in time management. We didn't do a very good job of estimating our activity costs. We didn't. So we need to do it again and come up with a new number. So we come up with a new number that says this is our estimates between our experts and our progressive elaboration and our meetings and yada, yada. We came up with a new number that says we think that the remaining work is going to cost this. Add it to the work to the costs that we've already ran up, and that's your EAC for this. The use here is that it gives you a fresh start. It gives you a fresh start for a project that's out of control. And it also, in a rolling wave, gives you the opportunity to do partial planning and still be within the realm of some precision, okay? This is why you would use the third formula. It has nothing to do with typical or atypical. This you'd use when you're pretty much going all the way back to square one, all right? So you can't really confuse this one with the first two, can you? And here's the math. And remember that ETC, they may ask you in first, so it would be a two-party. You'd figure what EAC is so that you can figure ETC and answer the question. It's really key. I can't say it enough. Answer the question asked. And you got 200 of them. Make sure you're answering the question that they asked you, not the question you think they asked you. The fourth formula was this one. And again, you're going to see it in the verbiage in the question. It's going to tell you that this customer or this project needs to consider a cost performance index in a weighted fashion, or something like that is going to tell you that the question wants you to use this formula to calculate your EAC. Okay, this is the formula that weights the CPI and SPI as heavier toward an EAC calculation. The conformance and usually it's cost performance. Usually it's cost performance that's heavier of the two. But for the exam, they're weighted just the same. All right. I'm just telling you, in the real world, cost performance is the one that they really want you to kind of weight and watch heavier. And it's more indicative of the health of the project. So they'll give you enough information in the question to tell you this is what they want you to do. That they want you to really extra emphasis with cost, or something like that. Something like that in the question, and you'll know, use this formula. And if you put the numbers of this formula, I'm not going to go through the numbers again. I'm just telling you, you can see this is pretty heavy. All right, this is pretty high considering as bad as we're running things right now. We're going to let both of them run just the way they are. This thing's going to run out of control. This was a $2,000 project that's now over $3,000 if we don't do something about it. Hold on. I'm sorry, I clicked too early there. And again, I want you to see that that they may ask you ETC, and in order to get to ETC, you have to figure EAC first. So remember, the other two things I'm telling you here is that there could be two-part questions. We have to figure something out first before we can figure something out. Or they'll flip it around. They'll flip around equations. And you'll see that more in Thursday night's equations than you'll see here. But equations are equations, right? You flip them around, you should be able to figure, as long as you get two variables, you ought to be able to figure for the unknown, no matter which way they give it to you. Okay, so you got to be able to do this, and you can do this. You're an MBA, Aubrey. You'll be fine. Before I move on, this is the other two. So the first screen I showed you, and this is all in the movie. First screen I showed you were the two that, if there's any confusion really with the AAC films, those are the ones that the difference between typical and atypical. What does that mean? The variances as I'm seeing them today. What do I think? That's what it means. Do I expect to see the same or I don't? That answers the question about which of the two formulas I use. If I don't see something like that in the question, I see rather that this thing's is going all over the place and your sponsor has asked you to create a new BAC. They're not going to use formula number 3. It tells me in the question which one to use. Now, RB, I just showed you the situations and kind of what you might expect inside each of the questions that would tell you of which of the 4 formulas and when you would use. Did that make sense? That I explained all 4 of them and what to look for in the test questions? If there's anything that confused you,
I got it.
okay.
I understand. I was looking at, I was trying to go like the 3700 plus the 18 and the EAC. I was trying to write all that down. And I was like, can we go back so I could finish writing that part so I could give your examples? But I took a screenshot of it.
Sure.
That way I do know.
And you can do that in perpetuity, sir, okay? Because like I said, these videos are going to stay up there. So you can rewind, play, pause, screenshot, do whatever you're going to do. So what I'm asking you here, though, is before I get into some of the final forecasting formulas you need to know for the exam, EAC is really important. It's the one that tricks people up. So I just showed you the 4 formulas, and I know it's one of the first times maybe you've had someone like me explain it to you. But I just showed you that there's 4 formulas and they're situational. And then I just gave you examples of when you would use all 4 of them, and what kind of verbiage you might see in the question that tipped you off. Did that make sense to you? Did any of what I just said still confusing to you?
It makes more sense now going over this the second time than the first time. So I'm good.
Good. So if that trend continues, the more that we review this, which we will, the better you'll get. Like I said, above and beyond my class is you practicing these things later. The best I can do is make sure you know how to do it. And that you know exactly how to do it. There's no question. What you do with that knowledge is up to you. Okay? But this is the 4 EAC formulas, and we'll see them again. And so here's that screen again. I want to show you a couple more formulas, and then we're done for the night. One of them is called 2 Complete Performance Index, or TCPI. Okay? What that's telling me here is it's saying from this point forward, let's say let's look at this project here, okay? And I'm certainly overrunning costs and I'm underperforming the schedule. I want to know how well do I have to work from this point forward? How much do we have to bust our ass, more or less? If I tried to get this horrible project back to BAC, how hard would I have to work from this point forward? That's a 2 Complete Performance Index. Now you can imagine that on a well-run project, maybe I'm a little bit underperforming, okay? So I wouldn't have to overperform too much if I really had to get back to baseline. But let's say a really poorly run project, like the examples I'm giving you here, where the numbers are really wide, you can imagine we'd have to bust our ass pretty hard to get back on schedule. May not even be able to do it at all. But let me show you what I mean by that. The other formula I'm going to show you is a simple variance at completion. But let me show you TCPI first. Okay, there's 2 flavors of TCPI, all right? The one on the left is the one you're likely to see on the exam first. What does that mean? I told you how well do we, and remember this is an index. So it's 2 Complete Performance Index. Everything indexing to 1, right? If we had been running to plan all along, we would be performing to 1 all along, but we haven't. We've been outrageously bad with a CPI of 0.72 and what was our SPI 0.81 or something. Really bad numbers, okay? So we've been chugging along pretty bad and we're way off course. So for us to get back on schedule again, we would use this formula here. Let's assume that my sponsor came to me and said, Clark, what would it take to get this monstrosity of a project back to its original cost baseline? How hard would we have to, how much would we have to perform against plan? If you do the math here, okay, you'll see it's work remaining divided by funds remaining. If I'm going to try to get back on track again, I have to perform at 3.5. In other words, 3.5 times the performance level of originally planned. From this point forward, that's how bad this project's been running. That from this point forward, I have to perform 3.5 times better than I even planned just to get back to original. It's like being 20 games under 500, okay? Even though I'm on a nice 3-game winning streak or something, I'm so far from the playoffs still, all right? I still have I have a lot to do. I got to go on a 30-game winning streak or something to get back to 500 or something, or get back into a playoff hunt. That's how bad this project is. You're never going to see a TCPI this big, all right? Usually your TCPIs will be 1 dot something, right? Because if you're doing this, you're doing this because you want to get back on BAC, that you're exceeding BAC probably, and you want to get back on it again. And so you're looking to say, well, maybe I could crash, and you're doing this, maybe I can crash a couple of my activities and actually get back to budget. You're not giving up on your BAC right away. You're seeing right now that you're exceeding, but not too badly. And with an adjustment here down the road, maybe I can actually get back to BAC before it's all said and done. This tells me that story, okay? This tells me current based, if I try to do it based on current base, this is how hard I'd have to work. In order to meet EAC, all I have to do is basically keep the current CPI. That's what TCPI is, meaning how well do we have to perform from this point forward to get back to BAC. You can see there's no way in hell we're gonna perform 3.5 times better than baseline, particularly as bad as we've been so far. We're the bad news bears, and we're going to all of a sudden become the Golden State Warriors. Don't think so. Okay, so this project's been in trouble and stayed in trouble, but you have to know this formula. Okay, to know these 2 formulas for TCPI. The other one's simple variance. It's just like the simple schedule variance and cost variance. I said it's just the difference between 2 numbers is a raw variance, and that's what we're doing here. But here we're doing it at the project level. We're not just doing it at a snapshot level. We're doing it at the whole project level. So variance at completion means our budget at completion minus the estimate at completion. So I grabbed one of the estimate completion numbers, 2778. Our variance is we overran this project. It's complete, but at completion, we overran by $778. Okay. Just a raw number. Just like I showed you, schedule variance is a raw number. Cost variance was a raw number back in current performance. This is simply a raw number at the end of the project, a raw dollar and cents of how bad it was. Okay? That is the formulas. Here, I put them all together for you in one screen because we're coming to an end of our evening, Aubrey. I'm getting tired. But what I've done here is I put it all in one screen here for you. You see the current performance formulas are here, as well as the EAC formulas and the other TCPI formulas and such are all here. Okay? Explanations of what the variables mean, they're here too. So what you see, this is a good screen for you to study. Okay? It's a good screen to puts it all together for you. These are your earned value calculations and when to use them. All right, on one screen. Take a good look and see if you got any questions. And think about what we talked about, because this is the last screen we're about to knock off. So
I'm good on this because the way you explained it is great.
thanks.
You broke it down, and I understand it more versus before, if that makes any sense.
It does, because and every knowledge, I guess, and proficiency is cumulative, right? You get the more you know, the more proficient, and it's technique and practice. And like I said, if I do anything in this class, I want to make sure that you understand it. I don't want you to leave not understanding anything and not knowing how to do anything. Now, if that knowledge falls out of your head for whatever reason, because you didn't practice it, you didn't keep up with it, I can't help you there. What I'm telling you is I'm making sure that, if you're serious, you and Jill are very serious about taking that exam, as in a relatively short amount of time, and I'm with you. Do it, okay? Do it, and practice hard and go in there and do it. So,
I'm gonna do it. I was gonna tell you I have a remedial MBA, by the way. I'm only joking, of course.
oh, okay.
But I think I'm good on that part.
Well, and again, review the video. You don't have to listen to me drone on for 2 hours. Just move it up and down in the video wherever you think you want to hear it again, and reinforce a couple of things. I will send out problems, earned value problems, some current performance questions, and some EAC questions, and you'll see them again and again. So there'll be the homeworks over the next couple of weekends are going to be like this. Okay, well, where there'll be mock questions. We'll talk about some of the execution process that we get into, but I'm always going to pepper in a few of these where I want to see you do a couple of formulas.
That sounds like a plan.
And make sure that when you leave here, you got it's still fresh. Okay,
That's good.
Aubrey, I'm all done, man. I'm beat for the night, sir.
That's fine. I understand. I'll see you on Thursday.
All right, we're all set for Thursday. If I can do anything for you or anybody that's listening, please call me, contact me. Again, I'll see you on Thursday. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Aubrey, have a good night, sir.
You too, sir.
Bye-bye.